Now, our next speaker for the day is Stuart Forrester. You can have a look at his bio on your brochures, but something that's not in the bio is that Stuart this year was named the Women in Resources Champion at the CME WA Awards, and for his work on diversity both with Iluka and through SHINE, which is a school-based program for at-risk girls. Now, on top of that, I was recently in Brisbane and had the pleasure of sitting at a table with Stuart, and he got announced the National Women in Resources Champion for Australia at the first Women in Resources National Awards. So just give Stuart a round of applause for that first. So it's good to see. One of the things with diversity is that we need to get the men on board and get them involved in this so that we can actually push it through. So it's great to see someone like Stuart getting that award. Today, Stuart's going to share some of his learnings on achieving a diverse workforce at Iluka. Please join me in welcoming Stuart.
Thanks for the introduction, Lynn, and thanks, Sabina, for the opportunity to talk to you today about what we've been able to achieve at Iluka's Nangaloo operations. It's easy to stand here and talk to you today because it's something that I truly am passionate about. Bringing this diverse workforce has really changed our business. We're saving much higher levels of productivity and improved safety also. So just in terms of the next 15 minutes, I'm going to cover off on how we've achieved the change, some of the results that we've seen, briefly touch on some of the tangible benefits of that, and I'll talk about how we've actually driven that diversity. And it really is about passionate leadership. So alignment. Well, first of all, David Robb, our Managing Director, he leads from the top. He's the chair of our Diversity Committee, and also within the game plan that he's created, we have as our primary objective to create and deliver value for our shareholders. One component of that game plan is engagement. And specifically under that, it states that we are to create diverse, empowering, collaborative and challenging workplaces. And so that's what we've set out about doing. It's also about breaking down barriers. So when I commenced this process back in about 2010, I remember having a conversation with one of my production supervisors. Now, when I started at the minerals plant in Geraldton, out of the 90 odd people that reported to me there was 0 females. And Wayne, when I told him we were looking at bringing some females and diversity into the operations team, he said to me, well, women can't work in the plant. Now, my response to him was simply, well, you haven't found the right person, or you haven't found the right woman. It's also been about coaching through the interview process. So I actively get involved in all of our interviews still because there's still a lot of coaching to be undertaken. So we fundamentally went about changing the way that we recruit. And it's really about, you need to ask yourself, well, what are we looking for? And so for us, it was really about looking at our longer term needs rather than our shorter term needs. Now, if I just left our recruitment up to our supervisors, I can tell you that they would have gone out and found someone that had a loader ticket, had 10 years mining experience, maybe 5 years operating experience, and we would have ended up with 35 to 50-year-old males, Caucasian males, because that was who dominated the mining industry. So first of all, we decided that it was more about aligning people's to Iluka's values of commitment, integrity and responsibility, which is specified on the game plan there, and a focus on finding people that were going to have the right standards of behaviours and standards of behaviours that matched those of Iluka and those that we wanted, and not a focus on those skill sets. So then with our advertisements, we pretty much put no minimum requirements for our operating personnel. No minimum requirements. Now, I still get today, the supervisors want to put, oh, well, they need a HR ticket. They've got to have their heavy rigid ticket. And I say, well, why? It only takes about 2 weeks to get your heavy rigid ticket. And if we're going to get the right person, you're not going to have all these people issues that come with getting the wrong people into your business. So we also, through that, we get a lot of people then apply for our roles. Now, traditionally, we might have interviewed 2 or 3 people for one operator position. Now it's not unusual to interview, say, 8 people or fill up the whole day and interview as many people as we can. Broaden the opportunities for those people who can gain employment within Iluka. And the reason we need to do that is when you're reading the resumes, it's very difficult to pick up on people's values and standards of behaviours. But to give you some tips, some of the things that I look for is loyalty and commitment within their business. So rather than, let's say, 2 or 3 years with one company, you might be looking for someone who's shown loyalty for 6 or 7 years. Someone that's been dedicated and committed to their own personal development and shown progression through their careers. And someone who, and I also look for things that are unique. Have they gone overseas and done volunteer work for 3 months, 6 months, or whatever it might be? So you look for something unique. But it is difficult through the resume process, and that's why we end up interviewing a greater number of people. Then our interview question set is set up very much, it does not target skills at all. In some cases with our operators, we won't ask almost what they have done before. It's irrespective. We try and understand whether they have those standards, behaviours and values that will match with Iluka's. And Donna McConkey, who's here today, has assisted me greatly through that whole process. Through that, and it was just actually we were interviewing just the other day with a supervisor who's been with me all through this journey, and it just shows that the coaching is still ongoing today. And we were sitting there and we interviewed a gentleman, and let's say he scored 7.5 out of 10 in terms of this question set. And a female came in and she scored 5 out of 10. Now, David turned to me and said, well, I guess you want to recruit the female. And I said, Chatty, David, you're not getting it. I said, the question set is very much about finding people who match our standards of behaviours. So the 7.5, in this instance, it's the male that we would recruit. Now, if the female had scored, say, 7 out of 10 and the male 7.5 out of 10, the rating is not accurate. So in that case, we may choose, because we're working towards closer matching our local area demographic and giving a greater opportunity to other people out there, that we may choose the female in that instance. But ultimately, we're looking for the best person in our organisation. We wouldn't be able to do this, however, if it wasn't for the support systems we put in place. Now, I often get told, oh, you can't bring people into the mining industry if they don't have the skills and experience within the mining industry, because they will hurt themselves. Now, our total recordable injury frequency rate going back before 2009, to be honest, the Midwest was known as the basket case within Iluka in terms of safety. Our TRFR now is under 10, currently sitting at about 7, and has got as low as 4. So we've really turned that around despite bringing in a range of people that have no mining or operating experience. So we've shown that you can do it. And it's been through development of safe work instructions, quality plant manuals. Most importantly, we developed a Certificate 3 in resource processing. Now, this wasn't something you can just grab off the shelf, a tick and flick with your local training provider. We built this in-house with our operators and our metallurgical technicians, and we see it as best practice to the point it's been rolled out to other parts of the Iluka business. And we've also put together what we've called a standard operating platform, which provides clear guidelines to our operators in terms of how we want the plant to operate. So it's been those support systems that enabled us to bring in people with no mining experience. So we really have seen a step change in diversity. So as I said, in the operating teams we had 0 females. Within a couple of years we'd increased that to over 20%. And within our broader Nangaloo operations team we increased within 1 year from 14% to currently sitting at 26%. So we really have made a difference. And I can tell you there has been so many benefits that have come with this. The diverse workforce brings in with it varied skill sets. It brings in it with people with different backgrounds, etc. And what we've seen is a massive improvement in our growth. If you were to look at our continuous improvement program as a measure of this, we've seen over a 200% improvement in the number of new ideas that have been submitted into that program. So we have people that are committed to our business and want to see it grow. I spoke about safety before. We've also seen higher throughputs than we've ever seen before, higher recoveries. And the other one, if I was just to focus on quality as one measure of that, going back to 2010 and prior, we had about 5% of our material was off-grade. Now, we've brought all of these operators in that had no experience, yet in 2011, our biggest ever production year, only 0.2% of our material was off-grade. And in 2012, 2013 and 2014, we've had 0% of our material off-grade, despite bringing in all these people that have no mining or operating experience. Now, the biggest benefit of all of this has been engagement. Now, I often say that it's about spreading the behaviours within your work crews. So just as it's unhealthy to have 10 Caucasian males between 35 and 50 within a work team, it's unhealthy to have 10 females within a HR team, for example. Kathy? So you want to get a spread of behaviours. Now, if you were to measure our engagement, and you see it day in, day out, but Right Management do a nationally recognised survey. Now, a couple of years ago, the Nungalu operations, I'm pretty sure, got the lowest rating within Iluka at 46 or 48% in that survey for engagement. Now, the mining industry average is a lowly 38% for engagement. High-performing companies in Australia score around about 58% in that survey. Now, we undertook that survey again at the end of last year, and we scored 76% for our Nungalu operations. And I can tell you, if you've got people that are that engaged in your business and want to see it do well, you will see higher levels of productivity, safety, etc. I remember when I first started, I couldn't get anyone to do an extra shift. And now people bend over backwards if we need them to do an extra shift because they're that engaged in the business, because we've recruited the right people into our business rather than trying to hit people with the right skill sets initially. So just another quick story on engagement, if I've got the time, I think. We have gone to the efforts of defining our values and how they look in the workplace, so commitment, integrity and responsibility. And the crews come up with this in terms of how that looks in the workplace. Now, interestingly, Wayne, who told me that females were no good in the workplace, going back a couple of months ago, came into my office, and it was just post we'd gone out and recruited a female through a recruitment agency, and we hadn't followed our normal process, and it tells me we need to follow our normal process under all instances. And I didn't have a right sort of feeling about this person that came into our business. Anyway, Wayne came down into my office and told me, Stuart, we've had to pull such and such into the office. And I said, oh, well, why? And he said, because she's swearing too much. Now, this is a crew of 14 blokey blokes, and they've come and they went to the supervisor and told the supervisor that this lady was swearing too much. Now, it wasn't that they don't necessarily mind swearing themselves, and they probably do it at home. It's just that they've now got a standard behaviour that's so high that they're protecting those individuals within their crew that may or may not like swearing. And so they become protective of each other and made a really great environment, to the point that that lady left a couple of weeks later. And I'd probably say it was because she didn't feel comfortable. She didn't align with our standards behaviours. So driving diversity. Well, to me, if you're looking at any change within your business, you need leadership and you need passion. So you need passionate leadership to do any change. And that's all that we've done in Nungalu operations. We've been passionate about making this change. And that's because we know the value add. So importantly, you need to communicate the value add. It surprises me today that people still don't go out and create a more diverse workforce, because we see the value add within our organisation at Nungalu. And so we want to continue to do more of this with the improved safety, the improved productivity, etc. So it requires a lot of coaching. It's taken a lot of my time. And as I said, I'm still involved in our operator interviews because there's still a lot of coaching that needs to go on. I'll quickly just talk about concrete targets. Now, I don't necessarily have an issue with having aspirational goals, although I think if you've got true leadership and passion and you've been set a direction, then you don't need those goals even. And you definitely don't need concrete targets. And the reason I say I don't like concrete targets is that I believe it can affect your integrity through that recruitment process. So if you're going through that recruitment process and you're left with a female who scores a 5.5 out of 10 and the male that's 7.5 out of 10, but you have targets to have one more female in your business by the end of the year, it may affect your integrity, and hence why I don't like the concrete targets. Now really we've now seen a tipping point. I mean, apart from the recognition and me being able to stand up here today and talk about what Iluka Resources is doing in this field, we have the females within our work crews going out and talking to their female friends and saying, you really need to apply for these jobs at Iluka. Program integrated, they constantly say to me that, gee Stuart, if you've got any jobs, this is where I want our people to work. We want them to work for Iluka Resources. We hear so many good things and we see it and we hear it back from our people that work for you. So we really have achieved that tipping point that we're now having a lot more females apply for our roles, and it is easier for us now to work through that process. So just in summary, think about what you're recruiting for. And for us, it's been very much, particularly with our operators, it's been about the longer term over our shorter term needs and finding people that are matched with our standards of behaviours. You need to be able to communicate that value add. If you don't communicate the value add, people will find it hard to accept the change and why you're doing that. And you need to lead with passion if you want that change. Now, just lastly, Lynn mentioned Shine. Now, I am very passionate about what Shine is trying to achieve in Geraldton. And if we are truly looking for equality, then we need to do more for the young at-risk girls within our school education system. Clontarf is doing fantastic things, but there is not a great program like Clontarf for the young girls. Now Shine, of the participants in Shine last year in Geraldton, a staggering 82% had been sexually abused. And I find that even hard to say. Now imagine if that was your daughter that was affected like that. These girls are very much at risk, but this program is really making a difference in terms of attendance and self-esteem, and will create great opportunities for these girls to be work ready and enter into our workforces. So I can simply just ask you to type in shinetoday.com.au and have a look about what it's all about, or connect with me LinkedIn, or try and catch me in the break. I thank you very much for your time and opportunity to talk about what we've been doing.